Go. All right, we are recording. All right, my name is Dr. Jesse Joyner, and I am joined by my friends Brian Dollar and Mark Freeman, and we are here in December of 2023, and we want to talk about Christmas because Christmas is it is a distinctly Christian holiday, and we believe it's a holy day and a holy time to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, and we've been doing so for 2,000 years as Christians. So we want to be that beacon of light in our culture, a culture that tries to secularize Christmas and take away the meaning of it. We want to be the people that hold on to that meaning and bring it to the world around us. So I wanted to take today to discuss some just ideas that these two gentlemen have had. I might share some of my own in our experience in working with kids and youth in church ministries. What are some ideas that have worked in terms of making Christmas special and meaningful for the children and families and youth of the churches? So I'm going to just see who wants to go first. And if you guys could tell us maybe some stories or memories that you have in your experiences of what has worked when you have Christmas at your church. Who wants to start?
Well, I can start from a rather than church perspective. Something that we've done. I did it as a family, my wife and I and our two kids, but also I've passed it on as something that we encourage people to do every year, and it's an Advent type of experience, but it's what we call the Christmas prayer chain, and essentially it's 25 strips of, you get green and red paper. Construction paper, and cut them in strips. And we kind of at the very beginning of December sit down as a family and we list off people that we want to pray for. And we put their names on each one of those slips. And then we create, you glue the chain links together and you put that on the mantle. And, as every day we take one of those chain links down and we pray for that person as a family. We pray God's blessings on them. We pray that he'll be real to them during this Christmas season, all those things. And then, that also works for the kids as they see it get shorter and shorter. We're getting closer and closer to the big day. But it's something that throughout the season allows the family to discuss the importance of Christmas, the fact that it's not about us, it's about others, and it's about giving Jesus to others. And the way we can, one of the ways we can do that is by praying for them and praying God's blessings on them. So it's a really easy thing for parents to do. It doesn't take a lot of, training, and we have to really help them understand the purpose behind it. Simple, praying for the people that we love and counting down the days to Christmas, and it's worked really well.
Yeah, I love that. We do something very similar with our family as well, but we've got it's one of the, it's kind of like one of the Advent calendars, but ours happens to be the shape of a wreath, and it's like all these little boxes, and so we put a name in each one of those boxes, and it's cool. Same exact idea. And one of the things, obviously, a lot of parents do Advent type things, and a lot of churches provide resources for kids ministries and stuff to do Advent, which I totally love. One of the cool things about this idea is it's in the busyness and the craziness of your schedule. It's not something like, okay, we got a craft that we're making tonight that's going to take an hour and a half, and then it's going to take me another 2 hours to clean up after the fact. Like it perpetuates those ideas. It gets you thinking about the intention of the season, that sort of thing. But it's something you're like, okay, tonight's a crazy night, and maybe we'll do a craft on Thursday or whatever when we got more time, but we're going to be intentional about the time that we have now, and we're going to pray for someone, and you can do that, and it takes less than 5 minutes to do, which is kind of a cool piece of the rhythm as you're trying to create some intentionality around that season, which I like as well. Yeah,
that's really good. I found myself last night, we're working through an Advent devotional that our church provided, and it's great. And our 13-year-old is really into it. She's paying attention. It's a small devotional reading, maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs long. And we do some other Advent traditions in our house too. But like last night, I'm reading it, but the 13-year-old is into it. But the 4 and 6-year-old, they're just crawling around everywhere. It's hard to, and I was even trying to engage them and use voices or have them make expressions along with the Advent story, like the devotional story. But I found myself in that challenging position of trying to figure out, how do I do an Advent devotional or experience that does cover a wide age range And it sounds like that idea of like the prayer chain, that's something that can engage even the younger ones because it's
Yeah.
tactile, it's tangible, they can open it. You know,
Give them a glue stick, let them rub that glue on the end of that. They're doing their part.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So I say that to say, keep going. What are some other ideas that particularly involve like the younger kids that would otherwise kind of we'd lose them if we just read a,
Yeah.
4 paragraph?
Well, we've always tried every year at the church to have. I mean, we're always engaging with the community and giving out. And one year we've got Hillcrest Children's Home just right down the highway from us, where they've got 100 plus of kids that are in the foster care system that they're caring for. And so we adopted them for a year and had all the children's ministry families come together up here, and we had a bunch of stations set up where it was easy for little kids to be involved as well, because they would hold the sack, and we were creating gift sacks for them. So as they went down, they were holding, and the older brother and sister would grab the stuff, put it in, or maybe they decorated the outside of the sack, with their own drawings. But there's a lot of different ways, especially to serve. Our desire every time as a church is to make Christmas about serving our community, serving those less fortunate, and it never being about us getting stuff, And so we're actually next Thursday doing, I know hopefully this won't offend anybody's sensibilities, but it involves Santa Claus. But there's just so many special needs families that can't even consider getting a photo with Santa because of, in a public place, how difficult that is to get your kid to go to the mall or wherever. And plus, man, Santa photos are expensive. And so we're actually doing an entire experience for special needs families, special needs kids and their families, to have here in our upper lobby. They go through Elf Village, and there's all these people dressed up and kind of making this whole experience as they're making presents and putting them down the conveyor belt and all this stuff. And then they go into Santa's domain there, and they get their picture with Santa, and we actually print it out and give it to them in a nice, cool gift pack. But we got families serving all along the line, and so we're just always looking for ways to involve the whole family in a serving opportunity where moms and dads can serve with their kids and make it a full family experience. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Let me share an idea, and then let me ask a question based on something that Brian brought up, but may take a rabbit trail for us for a second, but I'd love to get your guys' feedback. So anyways, one of the ideas that I had, or that we have done, and I did this I've done this with young kids. In fact, I was a public school teacher for 8 years before going into youth ministry full time, and it was in elementary education. And so I did this actually with my students in school, but I also would do this with our teenagers when I was doing youth ministry stuff. And that was kind of, so there was a retirement community really near where we were, and then also connecting with our church as it relates to some elderly that are more alone during the seasons, those sorts of things. And we would make handmade Christmas cards, and we would deliver them, and we would there is something beautiful for some of those folks about getting something that somebody made and created and drew, or stickers or whatever, depending on the age of your kids. But again, it's that idea of thinking of others, and what they're experiencing, creating some empathy, creating some interaction in that way. And with our older kids, obviously we had them think intentionally about some words of encouragement that they could share. You could do that obviously with your younger kids as well, depending on their ages, but just this idea of blessing somebody and bringing some joy to somebody's heart. And who doesn't love, getting something in the mail or getting a letter or whatever. And so that was always, again, kind of an easy but engaging, creative sort of process. And never once did we ever get any negative feedback. Sometimes I would monitor what was being written or what was being said before we sent them out. You get some interesting messages every now and again, but for the most part, it was quite a blessing. But the question I've got, and I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts, maybe and maybe your answer is different for how you engage it with your family and how you engage it in your ministry, is kind of that notion of how do you navigate with your families regarding Santa? And if your church is anything like the churches I grew up in, it's a very polarizing topic. And then those that are kind of in the middle somewhere just don't say anything about it because they don't want to upset anybody. But I'd be curious what, from a pastoral standpoint, if you've had any experience navigating with families on either side of it, and how that, what that has looked like for you guys. In youth ministry, I didn't have nearly as many engagements with it because at that point it's becomes a moot point a little bit, but I'd be curious your guys' thoughts.
Well, I'll tell you, yes, obviously, especially when I first started off, this was back in the early 90s, 91, 92. There was still quite a bit of that switch the letters in Santa and you get Satan, a lot of that was going on. But I mean, for me, I've found that as long as you do not lose the fact that Jesus is the point and you overemphasize that, using some of the secular representation and traditional Christmas decor and things like that it has not been a problem. I mean, you're going to have every once in a while that one very conservative family who still believes you can't even refer to anything that has any, same ones that are going to be upset about the Easter eggs, when you have an egg hunt.
We have the same with, we do a trunk or treat in Halloween, and there's some people who are like, how dare you celebrate Satan's birthday? And
Satan's birthday. Well, we don't do anything on Halloween, but it's for a completely different reason. I was of the opinion of, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen, that on the darkest night of the year, when so much darkness is being celebrated, we take all the light and bring it in one little spot so we can have a party for ourselves. That makes no sense. Instead, let's get the light out in the neighborhoods. And so we're involved in we hand out candy and we talk to them and actually engage. Excuse me. It's the only time our neighbors are coming to us, where we get a chance to really, share Jesus and show that we're normal people that care about our friends and neighbors, but as far as the Santa thing, go ahead.
That's why we always hosted ours on a day different than the Halloween day for the same purpose. Create an opportunity for people to gather, but then also scatter our people around the community as well. Anyways, not to distract.
Well, no, I mean, the Santa thing, I can't really speak. For the last 24 years I've been here, and it's never been an issue. The first time that we had a big Christmas thing and did photos with Santa, we used brother Joe Wilmuth was his name. He was the Arkansas district superintendent for like 20 something years, and he had just retired the year before. Well, he was our Santa. So how can you really complain when you got the former district superintendent playing Santa so that kids who can't afford Santa photos can actually get their picture made with Santa Claus? Certainly you got to be, you can't be flippant about it. If somebody's truly, deeply offended by it, talk through it. The reason why is we're building a bridge. We're giving something that they can easily identify with. That's not the reason for the season. We're very clear about that, but I don't know the word I'm trying to use, but Santa is a secular representation of the spirit of Christmas, and so it's something that kids immediately identify with. It's an easy thing for them to come in the door and feel at home with. We don't have a problem using it as a tool. It's not the purpose. It's a tool.
Yeah. I like that. I like that summary, Brian, where he's like a symbolic representation of like the meaning and idea of Christmas.
Yeah.
If I could add, I can't help but thinking that both Halloween and Santa, both of those words have actually, like, the root words are connected to what something is sacred. So Halloween simply means All Hallows Eve, which is All Saints Day, which is November 1st. So like Halloween is named because of its relationship to a Christian holiday. So like a Christian holiday, like All Saints Day, and then we have All Hallows Eve, All Saints Eve, and people of course have turned it into what they've turned it into. But I always just think about how these even these secular holidays, they're attaching themselves to something that's been there all along, which are Christian holidays. Even Christmas, like we have Santa Claus. Santa means saint. It's like the word saint,
Right.
So that alone is like
And Saint Nick was a real guy.
Saint Nick was a
That's the
real guy.
thing.
And so I mean, to answer your question, Mark, because I've actually gone through my own little journey of my belief, my whether I believe in Santa, of my
Please tell us your tenets of faith
no,
in
no.
Santa Claus.
I've gone through my own journey of like my position on this subject. Like I grew up in a house where my parents tried their best to not like have Santa be a thing. Like they always wanted to tell us these presents are from us, not Santa, whatever. And I tried to start taking that into my own marriage and family but when we had kids, and I was like, especially before we had kids, but early on when we had our first child, I was at first with that position of like, oh, it's bad, it's Santa Claus, it's confusing, it's not Christian or whatever. But as I saw my kids grow up as kids and get into the symbolism and the joy of the story of Santa Claus and the giving of gifts and all these things, I've started to become a bit of a believer.
We always, and I mean, I'm kind of in the middle of it in that
I am too.
We never told the kids the presents were from Santa Claus, but we talked about how much fun is it to pretend, Santa's a fictional character. We talk about him just like we talk about Dora the Explorer, it's like,
I would sometimes hear parents that were very strongly against try to make the argument like, but aren't we setting them up for what if they start asking, well, if Santa's not real, is Jesus real? I'm like, listen, first of all, if their faith is hinging on whether one fictional character is real and another isn't, it doesn't matter whether it's Santa or Superman or Spider-Man, like there's an authenticity to a relationship with God that's different than is Santa real or not? And am I tricking tricking your kids and those sorts of things? I sound like I'm like our family was just like yours. We didn't promote it, nor did we say, shame it or anything like that. It just, I think selfishly as a dad, I just wanted the credit for the gifts.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I think so I agree. I'm kind of that middle ground as well. Like I see how it's good, but I also don't want to make it it's not the reason for the season, so it's all about Jesus. And I like that. You've probably seen this painting or image. I don't know who made it, but it's Santa Claus kneeling at the manger scene.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of silly, but that image, I think, describes how I think we should approach like Santa Claus with the kids. Like everything, even the silly Santa Claus stories we come up with, needs to be submitted at the feet of Jesus. Like and like kind of like saying that Jesus is the true meaning of the season, and he is holy and holy alone. And and whatever we can do, I think, to recoup or redeem whatever sacred meaning and story we can from the story of Saint Nicholas, telling the kids the story of Saint Nicholas and finding all the Christian meaning that we can in that, enjoying the season. So I have to say one little line, or not line, a couple lines about Santa Claus. I learned this from Roger Fields. He ran a ministry for a long time called Kids Blitz. I don't know if you've heard of him, but
I know Roger.
So I got this from Roger because I served at the same church as him for a while. He said this, and I don't know if this is his own or if he got it from someone else. A man goes through 4 stages. There's 4 stages in a man's life. A boy and a man. Okay. Stage 1.
No, he didn't make this up, but it's funny.
Okay. Stage 1 is you believe in Santa Claus. Stage 2, you don't believe in Santa Claus. Stage 3, you are Santa Claus. And stage 4, you look like Santa Claus. Those are the 4 stages of a man's life. But I'm getting some white right there too, if you can see. Maybe it's in my future. It's my future calling.
Hey, as long as you don't grow it, nobody knows.
Yeah.
Oh man, well that's good. Well, I do want to wrap up, but I want to share another idea, if I could, about Christmas at our churches and for other people. I know many people at churches put on some sort of nativity play or drama or a living nativity outside. And I want to just encourage everybody. I think those are awesome. I think we should keep doing that kind of stuff. We should continue to tell the story of Jesus and the biblical story of Christmas through drama and acting, and whether it's on the stage at your church or in the field or parking lot outside for your community doing a living nativity. I think that stuff is primo. It's awesome. We're doing one this Sunday. We're doing a nativity play for the kids that I'm actually directing. I was tapped to direct, and we're going to dress them up. We built a little stable, at the front of the sanctuary. We've got the manger. We've got the Holy Family, Mary and Joseph. They're like kids in our kids church, but it's like a brother and sister, Mary and Joseph, the actors, and they happen to have a baby brother who's like 5 months old. So
that's awesome.
Mary's going to be like carrying a real baby Jesus, but it's safe because it's her little baby brother. She's 10 and she's going to carry her little baby brother. And so that worked out great. And I think it's a win-win. And here's why, because sometimes Christmas nativities and plays can get kind of chaotic with kids, especially if you've ever read the story, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. Yeah, it's a great story. But like in that story, they try to put on this play, but everything goes wrong and they think it's going to be a disaster. But in the end, we realize as the reader that and the people in the story realize, no, this was beautiful all along. The chaoticness actually represents what Mary and Joseph had to go through, with their traveling and not being able to find a place to stay, and like it was chaotic. And so if the nativity play goes chaotic, that's a win because it's depicting what really happened in that story. So I just want to encourage people listening about that too. Keep doing nativity plays and living nativities, whether it works or not. It's going to work in the end because it tells that story. Yeah. So any final thoughts before we log off, guys?
Yeah, and this maybe sums up a couple of different things that we were saying. I feel like the Christmas season is a really cool season to kind of recapture. We've been talking about lots of traditions and traditional things and the roots of a lot of things. I do think the Christmas season is a cool season, even for Pentecostal churches who are great at some of the more contemporary stuff, to really think about some of the traditional habits and some of the traditional practices, and the idea of the Advent season and some of the beautiful liturgy that is involved in some more traditional denominational things. Like there's just something about the season that people are more okay with, more quiet, more contemplative, sorts of things. And I would say try to find some, like in the same way I think a lot of people do in the Easter season as well, like capture some of that beauty in that as well. And I think that goes both for kids ministry and youth ministries as well. But look at some of the, more liturgical kinds of things and tap into some of those experiences, because I think it does, just like a jewel or a diamond, there's different facets when you look at it in a different light or a different perspective. I think there is something really unique about the Christmas season and Easter seasons where you can look at some of those traditions in some ways that maybe your church doesn't do or hasn't done in a while, that is uniquely positioned for those seasons.
That's really good. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Well, I fully agree with what he's saying, because I watch a lot of churches do their very, very best to, come up with the most clever and never done before thing at Christmas, when really, when you look at, listen to the radio, they're the same songs that have been done for decades and decades and decades. It's because that tradition and those emotions are connected to something that is familiar. And there's something that about tradition at a time like this, that as long as it doesn't matter if it's been done before, as long as it connects people to Jesus and it connects the family of God to each other around the story of Jesus, then you're winning. Don't try to feel like you have to do this over the top, super ultra creative approach. Sometimes the most simplistic, time-honored traditions are the most effective, because you're not about my creativity, but you're about the Creator himself and worshiping him. And so as long as Christmas remains about Jesus, we're gonna see him glorified, and we're gonna see everything come together as it should.
I think that's a good final word, Brian. That sums up Christmas. I think the simplicity of the manger, the simplicity of the horse feeding trough, and the King of the universe, our Savior, coming as an infant, coming to earth as a little tiny baby. The simplicity of that Yes, let's carry that spirit into our churches and our communities for sure. Well, this has been encouraging. I'm so glad. Maybe we'll do this again. We'll record another roundtable discussion about another topic in the future and post it for our students at Ascent. I didn't say at the beginning of this video, I want to say it now. We are all three of us professors at Ascent College, and that's at ascent.edu. And we are we teach in children and youth ministry programs primarily. And if you've never heard of Ascent, you can look us up at that website. And but if you're a student at Ascent, thank you for joining us and learning right now. And if this happens to show up on YouTube or any other social media area, leave in the comments. What do you do for your Christmas traditions in your house, in your family, or at your church as well? We'd love to hear.
That's good.
So thank you, Mark and Brian, and we'll see you next time.